When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
This episode is brought to you by Experian. Are you paying for subscriptions you don't use, but can't find the time or energy to cancel them? Experian could cancel unwanted subscriptions for you, saving you an average of $270 per year, and plenty of time. Download the Experian app. Results will vary. Not all subscriptions are eligible. Savings are not guaranteed. Paid membership with connected payment account required.
Hey everyone, welcome to this edition of Spin, Shuffle, Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. We are going to step back in time for this one, and I don't want to make you all feel old. Well, I may make my guests feel old with this one here, because we are about to talk about an album that is 48 years old this year. And I could feel the discs in my spine slipping as I said that, but we're going to go through this. We're going to go through this anyways. But we have a newcomer to the show, the Municipal Man of Mystery himself, guitarist of Ever the Bridesmaid, and the man behind the Municipal Man YouTube channel and website. Mark C is here. Mark, how you doing, man?
Hey, everyone. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me out. This is a great project, and I'm looking forward to talking about ... I'll let you introduce it.
Well, let me get to the album that we are talking about, because we're going down a road that I have never gone down before. And I feel like I've said that a lot, but that's okay. I like discovering new music. We're going to be talking about the self-titled debut album from Modern Lovers. Released in August 1976, the band is Ernie Brooks, Jerry Harrison, Jonathan Richman, and David Robinson. The album is actually included in the book 1001 Albums You Must Hear Before You Die, and in 2003, the album was ranked number 381 on Rolling Stone's list of the 500 greatest albums of all time, and up until this recording, I had never actually heard of this group at all. So, Mark, what is it about the Modern Lovers debut album that made you want to discuss it today?
All right. Well, let me help everyone out with a little bit in the way of background. If you don't know who Jonathan Richman is, you may remember a film from 1998, a romantic comedy called There's Something About Mary. Did you see that?
I may have, and I may have changed my hairstyle because of it.
Yeah, so that's Ben Stiller, Cameron Diaz, Matt Dillon. Anyway, in the movie, Jonathan Richman plays a troubadour who walks in on a couple of scenes as a cameo, and he sings the title song, Something About Mary. That's Jonathan Richman. So in the area around Boston, he's somewhat of a local legend, but he is known outside of that, and he's definitely known. Anyone who was into music from, around that time period, new wave, he's a bit of a legend and a staple for anybody who's interested in that. So I will give you my personal acquaintance with this album. And if I had to, choose my 10 albums for a deserted island that I'd want to be stuck with, this is definitely one of them. And there are many just things I love about it. But I would start with the lyrics. Jonathan Richman's kind of one of those. He's a songwriter. He writes in a way that a lot of songwriters would like to, and he's kind of in the vein of this might sound a little strange, but like Cole Porter and Leonard Cohen, and even Morrissey from the Smiths, where very counter trendy, I guess you would say. And in a time period when a lot of rock music was talking about, anti-authoritarian, anti-government, life sucks, woe is me kind of stuff. He's writing things about how great life is, and you just got to appreciate the little things. And yeah, sometimes you have some emotional troubles, but on the whole, it's a great time to be alive, And so there's that hopeful message that comes through in the lyrics, and but it's all done in this sort of minimalist rock vein. And it really just shows how much you can do with a guitar and a B3 organ. And I don't know. There's just so many things I like about it. So anyway, I hope that helps everybody contextualize this whole discussion here.
Well, see, this is going to be really, really interesting because I did mention that Mark is the guitarist of Toronto band Ever the Bridesmaid. And I have said on numerous times that I am the bassist of Toronto band Ever the Bridesmaid. So this is kind of feeling like when one of us is pitching songs to the other to add to the set list. Because Mark will throw a song and I'll be like, that's great. I've never heard this song in my entire life. He's like, what do you mean you haven't heard it? I'm like, I have not heard it.
And Jason dragged me to a show last week, and I was like, sounds great. I've never heard any of these bands, but I'll go.
So we are going to have two very different points of view of this album, because Mark obviously is very familiar with this album and I heard it for the first time today. So here we go. And here's what we're going to do. Each of us are going to pick 3 songs off of this album: a spin, a shuffle, and a skip. The spin is one we hold in high regard. The shuffle is one that even if it comes on during shuffle play, yeah, sure, why not? And the skip is one that it will just pass by. Doesn't mean that it's a bad song. It just means that on an album that you may like the whole album of, it might be the one you play last. So that's kind of the qualifier on this. Skip doesn't necessarily mean a bad song.
When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Kroger, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Kroger worth it every time. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
And now we get to our picks. So, Mark, it's your first time on the show, so I'm going to hand the mic over to you. What is your spin pick off of the Modern Lovers self-titled debut album?
Yeah, how do you pick a spin on an album where you basically love every song and you'll listen to the whole thing through? But I had to go with She Cracked. For a number of reasons. It's got a great hook in the chorus, and it's basically just a driving rock song. And but it's almost tongue-in-cheek because it's about a guy. He loves this girl who's very self-destructive, and he's a geek who stays home and eats health food and stuff like this. And it's just very much along the vein of the ethos that is in a lot of the songs. And I don't know, it's very, very catchy, and I never get tired of it. So that's my spin.
I will be honest, it was in the running for my shuffle pick. It actually didn't make any of the any of the picks for my list, but it was definitely in there because I was listening to it, and you get into a bit of a groove, you get into a bit of a a nice coasting groove, and then this song right in the middle of the album is like, oh no, here we're gonna turn it up a little bit, and then we're gonna turn it back down. It is a really, really good track, but it didn't make either my spin or my shuffle pick.
Okay.
For my spin pick, I went to the second song on this album, Astral Plane. This one, like the first one was pretty good. First track was good, but Astral Plane, if you like The Doors, you are going to freaking love this song. The Hammond organ is absolutely on fire. The bass is grooving through the whole thing. There were times, I will admit, I thought I was listening to like an unheard Doors album. That's how good. I mean, lyrically too, Astral Plane kind of fits into that Jim Morrison kind of vibe.
Totally.
Like, this feels like the Doors song that the Doors never actually wrote. So, I mean, you mentioned Leonard Cohen and Cole Porter.
Mm-hmm.
How much of a Doors influence do you think is on this album?
Musically, a lot. Like I said before, demonstrating how much you can do with a guitar and a B3. That's the Doors. It's their sound, right? and definitely asked. I think you're right about what you said. It's the Doors song that they never wrote. Am I allowed to throw caveats in there? Like, you know, can I say that Astral Plane and Roadrunner would be my like top contenders for my spin track? So I don't disagree with you there. It's a great tune.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I just mentioned that She Cracked was,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
running, but I didn't pick
Yeah.
it. So,
Sure.
we're probably going to talk about this whole album, I think, at this point on this show.
Absolutely.
But no, like from first listen and first actual experience of this band, this song comes out, as the second track. I'm like, oh, this is good. It really kind of hooked me in, and I kind of knew what groove I was getting for the rest of the album.
What I love about the song Roadrunner is that it really reminds me of my youth in, living in the suburbs. And it's just got this great line where it's about the guy who's driving around in his Roadrunner, going to drive past the sub shop with the radio on. And it's just perfect Jonathan Richman lyrics where most songwriters, they'll take those big themes and if you ask people to write a song, they'll talk about how the mountains are high and how the rivers are long and all of these, these big emotions. And he takes those really banal things about life and connects them to your own life. And you just sort of like, oh yeah, that is a thing. And how when you're a teenager driving around in a car, past the sub shop, showing off, doing whatever, and that's life. And I don't know, it's just a great tune. So anyway, I don't want to divert from the main cause here. So
hey, this is what we do. So our stock and trade are tangents on this show. So anyone who's listened to any of our episodes, they know that occasionally we make a left turn at Albuquerque, and it takes us a little bit to get back onto the highway, but we do eventually get back there.
We will, yes.
For my shuffle pick, I ended up right in the middle of the album with Hospital. This is a really, really cool track because there's like two very different vibes in here.
Yeah.
You mentioned Leonard Cohen earlier, and I kind of wrote down that this song has the cinematic quality on if Leonard Cohen and the Doors had a baby. That's kind of what this song feels like.
Totally.
And there's like, you got this really ominous kind of vibe to the majority of the song. And then there's this weird tempo change, and it's like, okay, cool. Now we're back to the Doors, and then we're back to this.
Yeah.
The quiet part of this song, and I may be going way back here, but I'm gonna draw a reference here, and you might know it, you might not, but that seems to be us. I know a song, you don't know it. You know a song, I don't know it.
Yeah.
Chris de Burgh, off of the Far Beyond These Castle Walls album, there's a song on there called Satin Green Shutters, and the quiet part of Hospital, especially kind of in the just before you get to the tempo, what feels like what would be a pre-chorus, kind of feels like a Satin Green Shutters type song. It's not Chris de Burgh's most well-known album, of course, because Lady in Red exists, but Far Beyond These Castle Walls has a very haunting feel to it. Satin Green Shutters is just all reverb and all haunt, and it's fantastic. And I think that's kind of what hooked me about Hospital because, yes, I subjected you to very, very loud music at a concert recently.
Yeah.
Chris de Burgh was my first concert that I ever went to pre-Lady in Red. So,
and you're admitting that, and it's recorded, and you're going to broadcast it.
I wear that on my sleeve. There are certain artists that I have seen more often than I can actually count.
Yeah.
Anthrax is up there, Tori Amos is up there, and Chris de Burgh is up there as well as Queensryche. Okay, I've seen a lot of shows. I will admit, I've seen a lot of shows, but this one kind of hit on a number of the artists that I listen to on a regular basis.
Nice. Should I jump ahead and mention that Hospital was my skip?
I'll go right ahead.
Okay, then I will. It's sort of a Sophie's Choice gun to your head. Which one would you choose kind of option, because I wouldn't discount any of the songs. The only reason I would discount or skip Hospital is just simply because it's just so painfully slow. And, if I had to pick others, I would go with others. But Hospital is if you listen to the album, you will notice Jonathan Richman sounds like he always has a cold. That's his sort of voice, but he's got there's a bassy kind of tone in the sound there that really works. And Hospital is the song where the kind of angst and emotion comes through in his voice there. So it is a good example of that. But he's along the tradition of other singers who are not like great singers in sort of their style. He surrounds himself with some really great players, and it all works. And Hospital is one of those songs that only I think he could sing and make it work, simply because I think it's very much him putting together. And if you listen carefully to the phrasing, the way that he places the lyrics over the music, it almost sounds like he's going out of time a couple of times, and he just sort of brings it back onto the beat. And it's great for creating tension. So it is a good song. But if I had to skip it, I would.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where if I were to ever do a Krista Berg, there can only be one episode.
Yeah.
From the album Far Beyond These Castle Walls, Satin Green Shutters would more than likely be my pick off of that album. So the fact that this song reminds me of that song makes sense that it's my shuffle pick. But now, since you've already mentioned your skip pick, that means you have one song left, and that's your shuffle. What have you got?
Shuffle, oh man, so tough. But I would have to go with Pablo Picasso, simply because of the sentiment in the song. It's sort of one of those universal things. And the line, Pablo Picasso was not called an asshole, not like you. And it's about guys who think they're the and they drive down the street with hanging out, catcalling girls and stuff like that. And Pablo Picasso, who was no great model, and he was only 5 foot something, but he sort of that difference between style and substance when it comes to attraction and stuff like that. And it's all very tongue-in-cheek, and it's just a fun song to listen to. So I would say Pablo Picasso, but I could certainly make the case for a couple others on this list here.
Yeah, I will say that there was a song off of one of the reissues, Dignified and Old, that definitely was in the mix for my shuffle. But seeing how this was my first experience with this album, I tried to stick with the original release track listing. But Dignified and Old is definitely up there. But can we skip ahead a little bit? Mm-hmm. Is it out of turn for me to say that Pablo Picasso is actually my skip song?
Okay. Well, you're crazy, but all right.
I mean, here's the thing. It kind of has the same Doors vibe that Astral Plane does.
Definitely, yeah. It definitely does.
But the problem with this one for me, and lyrics aside, because I didn't really have the chance to delve into the lyrics too much, but I think musically, in comparison to Astral Plane, this one feels like it kind of sits in the second gear, and it just kind of coasts as far as that tempo goes.
Yeah.
Roadrunner, Astral Plane, they all have like a really good grooving tempo to it, and you could feel the car coasting a little bit above the speed limit.
Yeah.
Pablo Picasso feels like the kind of song you would want to make sure that is on when you get to the speed trap.
Yeah, sure.
Not
fair enough.
Not necessarily that it's a bad song. I'm just saying that in comparison to the rest of the original release, it might be the one that gets put on last for me.
Well, you have to keep in mind that when this album came out, people had an attention span for a 7-minute song or a 5-minute song, and they could listen to long intervals of just a driving beat or something like that. It's very different to music today. And Pablo
unless
Picasso
you listen to Dream Theater.
Yeah, sure. Okay, fair enough. But I think given its time period, it really suits the mode back then. So.
Oh, I mean, radio was going to be able to play a longer song back in the day for sure. It's not like the 90s when they're like, oh, okay, we'll just get rid of that guitar solo. no one needs that guitar solo. What? There's a bass solo? Oh God, let's get rid of that entirely.
Yeah, well, these days you have an introduction of like 4 bars, and that's all people will sit through until the chorus or something.
And it's usually someone going 1, 2, 3, 4.
That's it. Yeah. Exactly.
Dude. All right. So, Mark, please, before we go, remind our listeners what your spin, shuffle, and skip pick are from the Modern Lovers self-titled debut album.
Spin, She Cracked, Shuffle, Pablo Picasso, and Skip, Hospital.
And for me, my spin was Astral Plane, my shuffle was Hospital, and my skip was Pablo Picasso. Mark, thank you so much for introducing me to this album, because I have a feeling this is one of those ones where I don't know if I would actually search it out and listen to it on my own, but that's kind of the fun of the show, is experiencing new music. Now, before we go, please remind our listeners where they can find you and Municipal Man out there on the interwebs.
If you go to YouTube, just look for the handle Municipal Man or Municipal Man Music and Media. You'll find my YouTube channel, and municipalman.com is my website. And that's where you'll find me.
All right, Mark, you know that there is a mic here whenever you wish to come back to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I had a great time.
All right, and dear listeners, you guys know the drill. If there's an album that you want us to cover on Spin, Shuffle, Skip, or an artist that you want us to cover on There Can Only Be One, hit us up on social media at OnlyOneCast, or go to our website at notthatbadcast.com. And while you're there, make sure you check out all of our other shows. Until next time, he's Mark, I'm Jay. You guys are awesome. This is Spin, Shuffle, Skip on the There Can Only Be One podcast channel, a proud member of the Pantheon Podcast Network. Take care.
Waterproof Records are your unsinkable tunes from the past, present, and future. What's up, everyone? I'm Jacob Givens, the host of Waterproof Records podcast. So what exactly is a waterproof record? Let's go back in time for a moment to when you were a teenager, and it's the first time you heard an album that would change you forever. Whether you're a musician and it was the reason you picked up an instrument and started a band, or if you're just a music lover, it's the album that made you who you are to this day. You'll tell people that your life wouldn't be the same without it. It changed your DNA. So join me on the podcast where I do deep dives on some of the most influential and important albums in my life. And other times I welcome guests on the show to talk about their musical journeys and what they consider to be their waterproof record. It's time to wax nostalgic with Waterproof Records with Jacob Givens.